So find a polynomial with the given function. So I'm kind of a step person. I don't know, maybe it's just because of me. I don't know. Remember this. The factors are written as x minus k. And what you're given here is the k. Right? The zeros. That's the k. So the first thing you do, this is a k, this is a k, this is a k, is you write the factors. So I'm going to do that. Using the 4, it would be x minus 4. Yes? Using this irrational number, it kind of looks like this. X minus, and then in parentheses, 1 plus the square root of 5. Close that parenthesis, and there's that factor. Because that whole thing is, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have written it like that. The whole thing is my k. What else do I know is also a factor? Yes. Because I have this, I know that its conjugate is also a factor, so I have to write the conjugate as well. So there's 3 factors involved in coming up with this polynomial. Now, the first thing we do, this looks really yucky, it's not too bad, is you look at these right here, and we're going to regroup them to make it easier to work with. So I keep the x minus 4. And what do you notice here? You have x minus 1 plus the square root of 5 and x minus 1 minus the square root of 5. I can regroup like this. So I'm going to put the x minus 1 together inside this factor plus the square root of 5. And then I'm going to do the same thing here. X minus 1 together minus the square root of 5. So I kind of regrouped so that the x minus 1 was together, and you'll see why in a second. You get that? Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to FOIL these. Those two. The x minus 4 is still coming along for the ride. So, if I FOIL them, this is what it's going to look like. I do x minus 1 times x minus 1. That's the first part of FOIL, right? I'm just going to write that as x minus 1 squared. And then, these are 2 factors that are the same, but the plus and the minus, do you see that? The sum and difference? What happens to the middle term when you have a plus and a minus? There is no middle term after you FOIL it, correct? They cancel each other out. Sum and difference. Do you remember that? So then all I have to do is look at the last term. Square root of 5 times the square root of 5 is what? It's just plain old 5. Square root of 5 squared is plain old 5. And I have a minus here, 5. Boom! Look at that! So much prettier. Okay? Then I'm basically just going to FOIL those 2. So I'm going to write FOIL out here. So when I FOIL that, I do x minus 4 times that actually, no, I'm going to FOIL inside here. So I'm still going to bring the x minus 4. I apologize. I'm going to bring the x minus 4 here. I'm going to FOIL this out. Does anybody know what this becomes when you do x minus 1 times x minus 1? Can anybody do that in their head yet? It's x squared. Let's just do it up here in case you can't see it. Some of you can see it, and it's a good thing to be able to see it. But if you FOIL that out, you're going to get x squared minus 1x plus 1, which would be what? X squared minus 2x plus 1, correct? So I'm going to write that here. Oops, plus 1. Boy, oh boy, oh boy. I need another day off, apparently. Minus 5. And then you can combine the terms. So we're going to combine those two. Still bringing the x minus 4 along. It takes a while. That's why you're not doing too many today. And then what do you think we do to get the final step? Ha. You are awake. What do we do to get the final step then? We just multiply those two. You can use a box, you can use FOIL, you can use whatever method you want. And I'll just tell you what it turns out to be. So if you were to FOIL all this, you would get x cubed minus 6x squared plus 4x plus 16. And that's your answer. It's a tedious, would be a good word maybe? A little bit tedious. Take your time. Let's do a couple more. Okay, that's why we're practicing this. So again, we've been given the factors here. So the first one I'm going to write x minus 0. You don't have to, but you could just write x. Doesn't matter. And then the second factor would be x minus 2. And then the third factor would be x minus 4i. And I also know then I have what? X plus 4i. Okay? Let's make this a little prettier now. So I'm just going to make this into x times x minus 2. This is a sum and difference here. What happens to my middle term again? I have x squared when I FOIL, because I'm going to FOIL. I have no middle term, correct? But I do have 4, let's just look at it this way. I have 4i times 4i. What is that going to be? These two together would be negative 16, but then I have to consider that negative. So in here I'm going to have a what? Let me break this down again. If I'm just looking at this, and I know some of you see it, no problem, but I've got to do 4i times 4i. That is 16i squared, which is negative 16, correct? But I have that negative there, so it's going to be plus 16. Isn't it fun bringing all this stuff back that you did before? Okay, now it's not so bad. I'm just going to distribute this, x squared minus 2x, x squared plus 16. And then let's just do this box method for the heck of it. I don't care what method you use. You got to multiply those two. So whatever method you prefer, I'm going to just use the box. X to the 4th minus 2x cubed, 16x squared minus 32x. None of them are alike, so I just got to write them all out. Can't combine any of them. So it's x to the 4th minus 2x cubed plus 16x squared minus 32x. And that's what I started with to get those zeros. Take your time. When you work through it, you'll get there. It's a little bit tedious. Let's do this last one here. So I'm seeing 2 zeros here, but I really have how many? 4. I really have 4. Because I got conjugates I have to consider. So x minus I and x plus I. That's the first one there. And then this one's going to look like what we did up here. So I have x minus 2 minus 5i and x plus 2 minus 5i. God. Thank you. Look how smart you guys are. This is a plus. All right, now what did I do up there? What did I do here? Regroup. because I have an x minus 2 and an x minus 2. So I'm just going to put that here. If you need to write that to help you see what's happening, you may not need to. And then I'm also, at the same time, I'm going to FOIL this, because I can. So when I FOIL this, I get x squared, the middle term goes away, right? And I have I times I, which is what? I squared, which is what? Negative 1, but because of that negative, it becomes what? Plus 1, yeah. So that went to that. And then here, I'm going to regroup now. X minus 2 minus 5i. So I regrouped that one. And then x minus 2 plus 5i. And it becomes the same process as I did in the first one. I'm going to leave this first one alone here. It's going to come along right now for the ride. And then I'm going to FOIL this. But in the foiling process, I'm just going to keep it written as x minus 2 squared for my first term. The middle term goes away because of the minus and the plus. 5i times 5i is what? Negative 25, correct? But then I have that negative there. So it's plus 25. Then what did I do? I FOILed this thing. In your head, what would it be? Think about it. Squared. Wow. Yes, very good. X squared plus 1. And then I'm going to FOIL this right here. X squared minus 4x plus 4 plus 25. You don't have to write all these steps out, although while you're first doing it, I think it's a good idea. I'm just going to combine those two now. And then whatever method you prefer. When I have a binomial and a trinomial, I tend to go to the box, but you can FOIL too. It doesn't matter. So I'm going to do the box over here. It's up to you, though. This is a 4. This is a 4. Okay. Now you look for any like terms. There's nothing I can combine with x to the 4th, so I'm just going to write that down. That one's done. There's nothing I can combine with the cubed, so that stays the same. These two are both x squareds, so I can add them together. So I have 30x squareds. And then I just have minus 4x plus 29. Cool, huh? Did that work?